Namaste. In this video, we will discuss and talk about Nigrah. In English, we call it as killing or striking. So this is one of the second principle of Shadyantra, and the rest of the four principles are dependent on Nigrah. So in this video, we will try to understand the behavior of main actors of Shadyantra. We will discuss the behavior of actors in normal situations and how and when they can strike. Also their striking limitations. And how these actors behave in special conditions and situations. We know that this video is all about killing or striking the opponent. So let's explore this video to know more about Nigrah. In this part, we will discuss how main actors of Shadyantra behaves in non-war crimes. Non-war crimes means when the war was not started, and also how these main actors of Shadyantra behaves when the war is started but there are no funds available for the striking resources. So the first condition is, if any one of the king or minister or general is in palace, then army cannot strike the opponent. They can only repel them. Let's understand from three examples. In the first example, we'll discuss how the king decides the actions. You can see that black king is in palace, hence all the black actors cannot strike the white actors, even though black minister and black general are free. The second example, we'll try to see how minister or shastri, when in palace, decides the course of strikers. You can see black minister is in palace and all the black actors can only repel the opponent but cannot strike the opponent. Here you can see king and army general both are free. And the third example, we'll try to see how army general is impacting the actions of their strikers. You can see that army general is inside the palace. Even though this palace is a different palace, but still army general is in palace, hence black actors cannot strike the white opponents. Similarly, the second condition is also very much similar to first situation. Strikers, on getting the power, cannot strike the opponent when any commander is in palace. They can only repel. So we have already discussed in first one. This is the special condition. So let's understand from example. You can see that king is in palace but army general and minister are free. So black actors still cannot strike the white actors. Knight has got power from naval army general, but still after getting the power, knight is helpless and cannot strike the white opponent. Knight can only push the opponent. And the third condition is again when any commander is dead, then also strikers cannot strike the opponent. They can only repel the opponent. Let's understand from two examples. In the first example, we'll try to see when minister is dead, how it impacts the action. You can see that here the black minister is dead. Even though king and general are active, they are not in palace, but still due to lack of funds, black strikers cannot strike the white opponents. They can only repel the opponents. In the second example, we'll try to understand how when army general is dead impacts the actions of their resources. You can see that the king and minister both are active and not inside the palace, but army general is no longer alive. Army general is dead. That is why black actors cannot strike the white actors. They can only repel the opponents. So overall, all the three commanders, which we call as Trinity, should be alive and should not be in palace if their army wants to strike the opponent. Now let's see the normal behavior of the main actors of Shadyantra. We know that in normal conditions, strikers can only repel the opponents. In the last slides also, we have already discussed it. Now let's see how main actors strike their opponents. This is very important part. Remember, lower ranked strikers cannot strike the higher ranked opponent, but can always repel any ranked opponent. So repulsion does not require any power, any ranking. Any striker can repel any ranked or any powerful opponent. So let's understand from two examples. In the first example, we'll see the powerless pawn or padati. Herein you can see that black pawn is powerless because it is not surrounded by any neighboring trinity or any spy or any power provider. So black pawn is powerless, and in this case black pawn can only strike the white pawn. Black pawn cannot strike the white knight. You can see that black pawn is striking only white pawn. So let's see the second example where powerless pawn is not able to strike the higher ranked official but can repel the higher ranked official. You can see that black pawn is powerless and is trying to repel the higher ranked knight. And point to remember that all the trinities are not in palace. You can see that black pawn is only able to push the white knight. Now let's discuss the second condition. Lower ranked striker, when gets power, can strike any ranked opponent. If striker is powerless, they cannot strike the higher ranked official, but when they get power, they can strike any ranked opponent. Let's understand from examples. We'll see the first example of padati or pawn. You can see that black pawn is surrounded by black general, hence black pawn is powered now. So in this case, black pawn can strike the lower ranked neighboring white pawn, as well as black pawn can strike higher ranked knight which is near to it. You can see that black pawn is now striking the white knight. Now let's understand the second example where Gajarohi or modern bishop in modern chess. When Gajarohi is powerless, then it can strike only padati, spy or Gajarohi, because these are of lower rank or equal to their own rank. Remember, powerless Gajarohi can still repel any opponent. On the same hand, when Gajarohi becomes powered, then this powered Gajarohi can strike the opponent's rank from padati to king. So power can help Gajarohi to strike any opponent of any rank. Similarly, the same rules apply to Ashwarathi as well. We call as knight in modern chess. When Ashwarathi or Shurveer or knight is powerless, then they can strike only padati, spy, Gajarohi and Ashwarathi, because they are of lesser rank or equal to its rank. Remember, powerless Ashwarathi can repel any opponent. On the same hand, when Ashwarathi gets power from spy or any trinity, then the powered Ashurathi can strike the opponent's rank from Padati to king. So this gives them the unlimited power. In the fourth example, we'll discuss about Maharathi, which we call as Rook in modern chess. The same logic applies to Maharathi as well. When Maharathi is powerless, then they can strike only Padati, Spy, Gajarohi, Shurveer and Maharathi, because these ranks are of lesser rank or equal to its own rank. Remember, powerless Maharathi can still repel any opponent. When this powerless Maharathi gets powered by any Trinity or Spy, then they can infinite power to strike any opponents of any rank, from Padati to king. Similarly, let's discuss Senapati, or what we call as general in modern chess. Powerless Senapati can strike Padati, Spy, Gajarohi, Shurveer, Maharathi and Senapati, because these are of lesser rank or equal to their own. Remember, powerless Senapati can still repel opponent of any rank. When powerless Senapati gets power or energy from the Trinity or Spy, then they get unlimited power to strike the opponent of any rank, whether they are Padati or king. So this is again the same logic applicable to all the actors. Now the last striker is king. So let's discuss how king behaves. Remember, king, whether is powerless or powered, is the highest rank. That is why Raja or Indra, whether powered or powerless, can strike any opponent's rank from Padati to king. Apart from strikers, there are non-strikers like spy and ministers. So let's see how they behave. Spy and minister are not strikers. They cannot strike anyone. Spy and minister, they cannot damage anything, like they cannot break the border. Spy and minister are not strikers, hence they cannot push the opponents. Now let's see the third condition, where lower ranked striker can strike the stranded opponent of any rank, if that stranded opponents cannot be repelled. So this is a very, very special condition. So we already know that lower rank official cannot strike the higher rank official. However, only powered lower rank official can strike. But in this third condition, even if the lower rank official is not powered, then also can strike the opponent if that opponent cannot be repelled. Because the lower rank opponent is trying to repel the higher rank official, but since when they are trying to repel, there are some hurdles, hence the opponent can be killed. So let's understand from examples. In the first example, we'll see that the Gajarohi is trying to push the higher ranked knight, but when Gajarohi is trying to push the or repel the higher ranked knight, in that direction already a hurdle is there. Since that hurdle is not allowing the repulsion or the repelled opponent to take its place, its block, that is why even though the Gajarohi is of lower rank, can strike the opponent. In the second example, you can see that Gajarohi is powered now. So Gajarohi is powered by the neighboring army general. So black Gajarohi is moving 2 steps further and trying to repel the knight, and knight can't be pushed further because in the repulsion direction there is a pawn already standing there. So this way bishop can strike the higher ranked official. Another thing is that bishop can always strike the higher ranked official because here bishop was powered. But I just gave this as an example so that you can correlate the repulsion with the striking capacity when getting powered. Now in this last part, we'll discuss how the strikers can strike the opponent and can reuse the resources. So please consider the repulsion and striking discussed in earlier part in mind, and then we'll see how resources can be reused. The first condition is where any opponent striker when striking can always end the opponent. We all already know that. Let's understand from example. Here you can see in first example that black pawn is striking the white pawn, but black pawn cannot strike the higher ranked knight because black pawn is not powered. In the same example, black pawn is powered by the army general and black pawn is able to strike the higher ranked knight. In the second condition, opponent army officials have their own padati. Like king is a striker because king has its own unit of pawn. Similarly, general has its own unit of pawn. Maharathi has its own unit of pawn. All the officials have their own units of pawn. Padati has no units of pawn because Padati itself is a unit of pawn. So remember, opponent armed officials have their own Padati. When any of these officials are stroked and killed, then their internal Padati can be reused by the striker and can be placed in their neighborhood. Let's understand from two examples. In the first example, we'll discuss about the powerless Gajarohi trying to push the higher ranked stranded opponent. In first example, we will understand how Gajarohi is trying to push the knight, which is of higher rank, but knight cannot be pushed because the destination direction has already has a hurdle. Similarly, on second example, we will discuss how powered Gajarohi is pushing the higher ranked stranded opponent. So let's see the first example and try to understand how a powerless Gajarohi is pushing the higher ranked stranded opponent and striking them and reducing the internal resource. You can see that Gajarohi is trying to attack the higher ranked knight. So in this case, Gajarohi cannot strike the higher ranked knight, can only repel the higher ranked knight. But when repelling the higher ranked knight, the destination place has a hurdle, and due to this hurdle, Gajarohi can now strike the stranded higher ranked official. So you can see that Gajarohi has killed the higher ranked official, which is knight. And after killing the knight, now Gajarohi can reuse the insider unit of Padati and can place Padati anywhere near to that killing block. So this block has to be near or next to the killed opponent, and it can be in any direction. So you can see by black arrows that Gajarohi can now reuse and push the Padati in any of the 4 available places. Third picture will give you a clarity as to how the Gajarohi has killed the higher ranked stranded knight and has placed the Padati to the right of the killed knight. Let's see and understand the second example. When the Gajarohi gets powered, he can either strike or he can either push the higher ranked stranded opponent and reuse the internal resource. You can see in this example, Gajarohi is powered by army general and Gajarohi is trying to move to 2 squares, 2 blocks and trying to strike or push the higher ranked official. So Gajarohi has of infinite power because Gajarohi can always strike the opponent of any rank. So Gajarohi has killed the knight by moving to 2 steps, and in the same direction Gajarohi when killed the knight, now Gajarohi can reuse the internal Padati of this knight, white knight, and can place the internal Padati in any of the 3 squares indicated by the green arrows. In the last image, you will get the clarity. Powered Gajarohi has moved to 2 squares or 2 steps and killed the knight. And after killing the knight, he has placed the internal Padati of the killed knight to right of the block where the knight was killed. So I hope this reuse of resources are clear to you. So this way we are done with the explanation of very important principle called Nigrah. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Namaste.